ring the gavel. Okay. Good evening. We would like to call our regular meeting to order here for the 6th of October. And we'd like to begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll ask our commander of the VFW to come down to lead us in the pledge.
Present arms. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you all please be seated and join us in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Council members and guests, we have minutes from September 25th. Did you all have any changes to those minutes? Okay, so it is the 27th. I didn't look at my calendar. So yes, the minutes from our last meeting. I have one little change that I'd like to make, Jenny. The nominees that we made for the Board of Viewers were in addition to Jennifer Bondurant, who had already been nominated, and they were nominees, not appointees, because then we asked David on our behalf to contact them to be appointees.
Okay, I'll change that.
Were there any other changes? Do we have a motion to approve as amended? We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay. Well, at this time, we do have a proclamation for Arts and Humanities Month. I'm going to remove this for just a second so you can hear me as I read this proclamation. October 2021 is National Arts and Humanities Month. Whereas the arts and humanities are the embodiment of all things beautiful and entertaining in the world, the enduring record of human achievement, and whereas the arts and humanities enhance every aspect of life in the city of Radford, improving our economy, enriching our civic life, driving tourism, and exerting a profound positive influence on the education of our children. And whereas arts education research shows that the arts help to foster discipline, creativity, imagination, self-expression, and problem-solving skills while also helping to develop a heightened appreciation of beauty and cross-cultural understanding. And whereas we use the humanities, history, literature, and philosophy to explore what it means to be human. And whereas the arts and humanities play a unique and intrinsically valuable role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our state. And whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by the thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, as well as by the White House and Congress for more than 2 decades. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Radford, Virginia does hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 as National Arts and Humanities Month and does call upon the citizens of Radford to celebrate, explore, and participate in the arts and culture of the City of Radford. Dated today, October the 11th, 2021. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this proclamation. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay. Well, at this time, we'd like to ask Sheriff Armentrout to come forward. This past summer, we had a wonderful event for kids in Bissett Park, the Life Skills Camp, and Sheriff, if you'll please give us a report on what happened with all of that.
Well, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to talk about this today. We do have some folks here that I want to introduce once we get through this, but this camp was something we thought about doing a couple years ago, and COVID got in the way and shut us down. We were very fortunate to be able to do this August, and we had a tremendous turnout. The theory of the camp was just to try to teach kids some skills that they normally don't get in their everyday life and in their life at school. So we reached out to the community, the businesses, to try to say, help us put this together and what kind of things would campers benefit from. So we started thinking of things like how to change a tire, how to check your oil, air pressure, things like that, how to use a hammer and nail, do some basic home repairs, how to safely build a campfire and put a campfire out. We also included archery and fishing, how to tie a fishing lure. I'm not sure we actually did that, but we learned how to cast and things like that, just to teach kids how to do that. And then we also did a simulated traffic stop with the help of the police department, which was great. So the kids got to see a traffic stop from a law enforcement perspective and a traffic stop from a driver's perspective. So it was really a great event. We had well over 100 campers, and we had over 40 volunteers. And if I had to pick a volunteer that wins the volunteer champ, it would be Naomi, because she
There you
did
go.
the entire camp with her 1-year-old with her the entire time, which was tremendous. And I never heard a peep out of the camper, so kudos to you for that as well.
Well, she's enthusiastic about the
Yeah.
report, so there you go.
Yeah, one thing I would be remiss if I didn't do, if you'll bear with me, I want to read a list of all the sponsors that helped participate with this event. When I sort of floated this to the public, I really didn't know the feedback we would get, and I didn't know how many kids we would get, and I sort of wanted to keep it in Radford just because I wanted to make it a Radford camp. So if you live in Radford, or if your kids are here in Radford, maybe you work out of town, you have tuition kids, whatever, we opened it up to basically Radford students. And so I talked to a few businesses, and the first 6 hours that I went out to say, hey, I think we're going to do this kids camp, and I basically said what I just said to you all. These businesses opened their pocketbook, and they helped with not only money, but prizes. They donated well over $7,000 worth of prizes to give away to these campers. So the way the camp went is we had those sections I talked about, and the first day of the camp, we showed the kids how to do the archery, how to do the fishing, how to do the campfire, the automotive stuff. We also let the police department do their traffic stop. But then on the Sunday, we had competitions that were related to what we taught you. So we had accuracy casting. We had archery accuracy competition. The kids got to run a police obstacle course for time, which was really cool. They got to do, let's see, we gave so much stuff away. I don't want to forget anything. The campfire building, and it was great to see the kids very excited about what we were doing. And we had all the prizes lined up so the kids could come by and look at what we were giving away. And some of these sponsors, I just want to read them so you'll know exactly who we were dealing with. Some of the title sponsors were Mullins Funeral Home, Sal's, First NRV Credit Union, Dean's Body Shop, Knock and Hook, and Snap-on. We also had Tangent Outfitters, Harvey Chevrolet, Sam's Brothers Builders, Cole Morgan, Aaron's, Anthony Blackburn's Taxidermy and Archery, Walmart, Advanced Auto, Keller Williams NRV, Rural King, State Farm, Lowe's, Food City and Food Lion, Southwest Outdoor Power Equipment, Patrick and Angela Moore, Sherwin-Williams, JES Towing, Radford Welding, Radford Police Department, Radford Fire Department, Hunters Helping Kids, Department of Wildlife Resources, Rad Ventures on the New, Radford Rec Department, 11 West, Radford Drugs and Audiotronics, and also Sound Systems. So with the cash that they donated and the prizes that were donated, we gave away around $7,000 worth of prizes, and we're very fortunate we didn't have rain, and we want to make this an annual event. Next year, we're going to do some of the same skills, and we're also going to do some different skills. I'll go ahead and make an announcement tonight. I don't know, some of you folks that have been here a long time may recall an event 10 or 15 years ago where a friend of mine actually was on military work, and he landed a Black Hawk helicopter here in Radford. He's agreed to bring that back and land it on a football field. So I'd like to maybe get Lifeguard 10 and some other things to have a segment on the kids to look at a Black Hawk helicopter and see how that works. And we may do some different events as far as some, not in the river, but river-related events, stuff like that. So we don't know exactly what we're going to do next year, but we want to make it bigger and better. And with sponsors like this and volunteers that helped out, we want to make it an annual event. We don't. I'm going to do it in late August again. This year it worked out. It was the day before school started, which I'm not sure the school was absolutely thrilled with, but we may try to do it a little bit earlier. And we did not have a rain date, but we want to incorporate a rain date to it, but it'll be sometime in August. And I'm going to wait until after the first of the year. And we did have an after camp meeting to get some ideas of what we did wrong and what we did right to try to improve on it and make it better. So we're going to make it an annual event. But I'd like to have the families, if you could come up with the children that won the camp champ, and I'll introduce you individually. And if you'd like to say something, I'll give you the opportunity. So we broke the camp down into 2 age groups. We had a younger and an older group, so we didn't have some of the older kids competing against the younger kids. And we gave away so much stuff that I was a little afraid that at some point some kids are going to be disappointed that, man, I didn't win, or, I wish I had done something. So we actually reached out to Darius Nichols at RU Basketball, and he gave a great speech on winning and losing and how to handle winning and how to handle losing. And if you did win, great, good for you. If you didn't, here's some encouragement to come back next year. We're going to do it again, so hopefully you can do it again next year. So our younger camp champ is Alex Jesse, or the older one, I'm sorry. Got you. Come on up. You were the camp champ. So we took each category that we gave prizes away. We added up their total scores, and you were the camp champ. So I appreciate it. You're welcome to say a few words of what you thought about the camp.
I really enjoyed the camp. I would like to thank all the police officers for the opportunity and everybody that set it up to learn these skills. And my favorite event was the archery, and I want to thank all the volunteers and the sponsors that we had to do this. So that's all I got.
You did a great job. You have anything you want to add? You good? Okay, great. Thank you. You're welcome. And Grayson Zykes was our younger champ. Grayson, come on up. Say a few words.
I don't know.
Don't worry about it. You'll do just fine.
I don't know what to say.
Just read your thing, bud.
No. My name is Grayson Zykes. I am 9 years old. I participated in this year's Life Skills Camp. During camp, I learned how to put out a fire, and I learned how to make a campfire. I learned how to use tools. I also learned how to use a bow and arrow. I learned so much, and I won a lot of cool prizes. Thank you, Sheriff Almondchild, and the other people that helped me and all the other kids. I can't wait until next year's camp.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I did just want to introduce you guys to the champs and let them explain to you what the camp was about. I appreciate the city's support as far as when we were advertising and putting it out. I did get a little scared that I may have bit off a little more than I can chew when we had the people signing up and coming in. Like, man, we really need volunteers. But when I put out the call for volunteers, they showed up and helped. So thank you all for everything. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to do this. I'm glad you got to meet the camp champs, and hopefully next year we'll be back and do it bigger and better. So thank you, guys.
One big takeaway from that is that Sheriff's Office, all of our first responders really stepped up, the community also really stepped up. And we're thankful to everybody. Congratulations to our camp champs. Good job. You all did great tonight. At this time, we do need to move to a public hearing. The city of Bradford has received $4,114,196 from the Federal American Rescue Plan Act associated with coronavirus relief. We don't have these funds already in our budget, and as such, because they exceed 1% of the total budget, we're going to have a public hearing about it. This is for the city to receive the funds and to be able to find a way to utilize them over the next year. Tonight, we're not talking about the actual expenditure side. We'll be doing that in the coming weeks. We have a council retreat set up for early November where we'll be discussing that, and we'll be figuring that piece out over the budget cycle. But at this time, I wanted to open the floor for our public hearing for the receipt of the ARPA funding of $4,114,196. If you have a comment you'd like to make one way or another, you're more than welcome to come down front. Please use the microphone, state your name for the record. Seeing no one coming forward, we will go ahead and close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and we will move to old business, which is the actual adoption of the appropriation ordinance to receive the money for the ARPA in the amount of $4,114,196, appropriation ordinance 1726.39. Do we have a motion to accept that appropriation ordinance?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Is there a motion to do so? We have a motion to dispense with a second reading. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. At this time, we will open the floor again for citizens to come down for any comment on public matters that they would like us to consider this evening. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less right here at the podium. If you'll come down and state your name for the record, and be sure to use the microphone so we can hear you. Seeing no mad rush for the podium, we will go on and close the citizen comments portion of the meeting, and we will move to new business. And at this time, I am going to recognize the Radford Heritage Foundation, because as part of our memorandum of understanding, we have a report from the Radford Heritage Foundation. So Scott Gardner, our executive director of the Radford Heritage Foundation, is here with us this evening. Scott, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor Horton, City Council, and City Manager Ridpath for your time this evening to review our report of our work for 2020 and early 2021. Forgot there's a slideshow. Thank you for the support you and all city staff provide us with the operation of the Glencoe Mansion Museum and Gallery, the Mary Draper Ingalls Cultural Heritage Park, and the New River Train Observatory. And these are all assets and tools for economic development and education and advancement for the community. I want to extend a thank you also to our board members and volunteers who make the Radford Heritage Foundation's activities possible. And I will ask my group to stand up in the back, please. Look how willing they are.
Thank you all.
And I also want to extend a thank you to Anastas Perez, our council representative. To say that 2020 and 2021 were not what we expected is an understatement. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our operations were turned upside down. And this was a great challenge, but we also took it as an opportunity to really grow as an organization, to revitalize, and I feel like we are stepping out on the other side as a stronger, better organized organization. Now, to combat the closures and near stalling of the tourism industry, we had to move to innovate to maintain our mission, which is to educate people about the history and culture of Radford and the area. And one of the ways that we achieved this was through our series of history posts on Facebook. This was a really fun series to put together, and we later put it on Instagram as well. But from March 2020 through April 2021, we posted more than 250 posts. And with the top 5 posts, we reached over 7,500, 4,300, 3,200, 2,600, and 1,300 users respectively. And our social media presence has grown from there. And during this time, we also collaborated with the Radford City Schools. We produced 2 educational videos about the Native Americans of this area and the excavation at the Trigg site. And we also collaborated with the Radford Public Library to host 2 online story times in conjunction with our holiday exhibit. And we even collaborated with with Mountain Trotter Arts to host one of the West End Wednesdays online to keep the community engaged with this great event. But with the closures, we were certainly afforded a good deal of time to work on some of the stuff inside the museum. And one of our big missions was to work on rehousing our collection in archival safe storage and cases. And with the help of 2 Radford University interns, we were able to get quite a bit accomplished in 2020. And this is also just helping us to better organize our materials and make them more easily accessed for people who have questions. But speaking of the collection at Glencoe, we took on several significant donations. And first among them, I would say, is the sideboard right here. This is the Wharton sideboard. So this was a piece that was returned to Glencoe by the Bell family of Salem, Virginia. And I'll just say George Bell and his wife Barbara have a child that if you have any kids, had a child who, if you have any kids, you've probably read C.C. Bell's work. So this piece it's an extraordinary piece showing craftsmanship and also draws in some of Radford's early leading families, connecting the Whartons and the Heath families. And in case you're wondering about the guy in the middle, he is not as scary as he looks. That is a green man, a symbol of fertility and abundance in spring, and a very appropriate thing to have in a dining room of the 19th century. But also things that were changing at the museum to keep it going, to keep it dynamic were the art gallery exhibits. Throughout 2020, we hosted a total of 5 exhibits, 4 of them being art exhibits, and then 1 of them being our holiday-themed historical exhibit. And just to highlight some of what we had Cheryl McKeon's Travel is Good for the Soul, What Makes Radford Special by the Radford Photo Club. And then we, in 2021, have had Mountain Rail Tales featuring the works of Dale Carlson. And then our current exhibit, and that is the work in the center, that is called, it's from the series called Mutualism by photographer Langley Anderson. And as far as our historical exhibits that we've worked on, for Christmas 2020, we worked on our exhibit, Misfits, Ghosts, and Goblins. We decided to take a very light approach to Christmas. We thought after the year we'd had in 2020 that honoring our unlikely Christmas heroes would be good. So we honored everyone from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer to the Grinch and just showed how much of our culture has been shaped by these stories. And another exhibit that we put together, I don't have a picture of it, but we put together the exhibit, The Edison, the Phonograph and the Birth of Recorded Sound. And this is an exhibit that highlights the 1918 phonograph that Dr. Russ and Mrs. Betsy Davis donated to our collection. And I just want to say that we do play it because it was their wish that it always be played for people. But as far as other activities going on in 2020, we very much consider our role as a steward of Glencoe as a very important aspect, and we chose this time to really initiate some work to bring Glencoe into the 21st century. During 2020, we began the process on the lower level with repainting. We did a tremendous amount of moving of objects around, and we are, throughout 2021, completing our electrical plan to really improve the lighting situation down there. But it's not just the Glencoe site that we're concerned with. We are also involved with the Mary Draper Ingalls Cultural Heritage Park. And in 2021, we are putting a lot of effort into really bringing that up as well. But I wanted to also bring up that during 2020, the New River Train Observatory, which is at the Mary site, received some national and international recognition, it was featured in Informed Design and Innovation, a magazine published by the American Institute of Architects, and it was also featured in the book Architizer, The World's Best Architecture of 2020. So Radford is getting in some national and international publications. But to make all of this happen, we certainly need funding, and so we have sought additional sources of funding from other entities to fulfill our mission. One of our key fundraising aspects is our membership campaign, and in 2020, we garnered 117 memberships, raising over $13,000. And then we received CARES funding from the Virginia Humanities in the amount of $2,000. And then we received, through the Community Foundation's Give Local program, over $600. Now in 2021, we are awaiting the decisions on 3 additional grants, one from the Virginia Humanities, one from the Virginia Department of Forestry, and one from the Community Foundation. And as far as that Community Foundation grant, we have been selected among many applicants to be on their online grant catalog, so the public can go on through October 29th and donate so we can receive more funding for our operations. But this aspect of the funding just highlights, along with other donations and support, that our operation is truly a community effort, and this is Radford's museum, and Radford people are making it happen. And speaking of community support, we'll be soon reaching out to members of the community for our upcoming holiday exhibit, Christmas in 2021, Christmas in Virginia. But as we near the end of 2021 and enter 2022, we're very excited about what we've achieved as an organization and very excited what will come in the future. And we thank you so much for your support of our efforts. And I just wanted to do one shameless call out that the Smithfield Review has just been published, and it features an article that I wrote on Belle Heath. So the school is actually named after somebody, and I have her biography written here. But this ties in with all of my work at the Museum of Documenting the History. So thank you so much for your time and consideration this evening.
Scott, thank you so much, and to the board members that are here, and you, thank you for the efforts that you have undertaken to make Glencoe work through challenging times, but also to continue to move us forward. I wanted to touch on the MOU before we let you go. So just a couple of things, and council members, you all have a copy of the MOU as part of your packet. Couple of key areas, certainly we're working with the Heritage Foundation to work toward increasing the pay for the executive directors. So $2,000 of the award of the money from the city would go toward that. That was part of the 2020 MOU, and it reflects his expanded responsibilities. One of the most important pieces is our next area, to initiate and execute plans to increase accessibility and visibility, and develop an architectural proposal with Thompson and Litton to increase and explore accessibility for all visitors. Can you talk a little bit about the vision that is held for that?
Yes. Yeah. I've been at Glencoe 11 years now, and one of the overwhelming obstacles to its operation has been accessibility to it. So many individuals, our demographic is older, let's just be honest, and a lot of our volunteers have accessibility issues, so it's really a difficult building to operate in, and really we're not offering all 3 floors of the museum to the public currently. So we really we wanted to take an effort to make this building something for everybody. We want Glencoe to be, as I said earlier, Radford's museum. The other aspect about the accessibility, which is number 1 on our list, is the idea of really making Glencoe seem open to the public. And unfortunately, the facade that faces Main Street is the rear facade of the house. The Whartons were not very forward-thinking to think that the city of Radford was going to be behind their house. But we want this addition with the new accessibility to also present a welcoming open facade to Radford and the community beyond.
For that timeline, what are you thinking about to get the architectural proposal together and then to begin the process of fundraising and grant gathering and all of that?
Well, we currently, our next board meeting is October 20th, and we'll be deciding on one of the 2 proposed plans that Thompson and Litton have put together.
Okay.
At that point, we'll be addressing you guys about which one we've chosen moving into the future. And then from there, something that we added to our agreement with Thompson and Litton was to get estimates created for it. So we're getting a better idea of what the cost will be. And all throughout 2021, we've been exploring grants and other opportunities that are out there. It's just we need to get things a little more concrete. But once we decide on a plan and City Council approves of the plan, that set of drawings will go into something that contractors could actually look at and really start putting together estimates and deciding or telling us how this would move forward.
So looking at the next 3 or 4 months, we'll probably see you back in either December or January to have that discussion?
Yes.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect, wonderful. Council members, do you all have any other questions? Naomi?
Yeah, Scott, last week we had the opportunity or the last time we were here, I guess 2 weeks ago, we heard a little bit about how you've been working with the American Legion to potentially work on preserving some of their collections.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me wondering if you are currently collaborating with other organizations and if you could describe some of that work that you're doing with different organizations.
Yeah, I mean, we are constantly, I mean, our work is collaboration. I mean, first of all the museums, we all have to work together to push our museums forward. But, I mean, we collaborate with, like I said, the Radford City Schools, Radford Public Library, but, you know, something else that has popped up this year is Blue Ridge PBS is putting together a documentary on the New River, and we have supplied some of the historical information and imagery for that. And I think that's one of those things people don't realize is we get so many historical questions at the museum. And I think even when I'm at the museum hiding from the library that I'm safe, but they send them over to Glencoe to get me. So the aspects, I mean, to me, it's just this collaboration. I'm sorry, I'm on the spot. I can't think of all,
that's okay, that's
all
all
the
right.
examples. But I hope that answers your
It
question.
does, and I also wanted to clear up one thing, because I'm not on Facebook, but I am on Instagram, and I did not know that you had an Instagram, so I've been influenced tonight, because I would like to follow you and give you one more follower. So can you
Yes.
tell us, is it the Glencoe, or is
It's
it
Glencoe
Heritage
Mansion.
Foundation? Fantastic, you've gained at least one.
There you go.
You might hit on too, I've been on the board. So one of the things that come to mind with your question was how you often will work with families that may have artwork or specific donations. And I know when I was on this board, there was a large collection and you embraced it, you helped sell it and promote it and educate the community about it. So there's that aspect too, where there's community gifts, but there's also individual gifts. So I don't know if there's anything specific with that you have new that you want to mention?
No, well, it's just, I guess I want to reiterate that, or get the idea out there that it takes a lot of relationship building to really develop the museum, and we really have to make a community presence, our presence be known, and people don't donate amazing objects unless they truly trust the museum. You know, one of the things I'll say that, you know, we're very excited that in 2022 the Wharton letters are being published. But, you know, to me, to have an acclaimed Civil War historian ask me as the director of the museum to proof the manuscript, I just feel like that shows that we really are an asset in the community.
Absolutely. Do you have any other questions?
Well, I would just be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Scott and the board, and as well as the appointed members. Obviously, we sit on different boards and committees in the community, and I have to say this one in particular, and being a fairly newer transplant here, a little over, I guess, 13 years now, I learned so much about this community by sitting on this board. But even more than that, I think the opportunity I had to meet the stewards to our history, this board is par none. I mean, they are an incredible group, and I've loved working with them and their enthusiasm for protecting our history, and not only protecting it, but going out and finding it and preserving it. So I just have to say I truly enjoyed my experience with this board, and it was my honor to serve for the time I did. It really is still one of my favorite experiences being on city council was the time I was able to spend with those folks.
Onassis?
Thank you, first and foremost, to the board and to Scott. You're an excellent presenter, my friend. I love it. I feel like I was in a documentary at some point. I love it. Yeah. So,
Thank
so
you.
has there been any consideration given to digging deeper into the Fred Weigel Elementary School and the role it played within Radford?
Yeah, as far, and that's something we're certainly going to speak to in 2021 is inclusivity at the site.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I was alluding to with some of the accessibility. We want people to feel that this is everyone's museum. One of the first steps that we're taking with this is acknowledging the history of Glencoe itself as an estate that was operated in the post-Civil War period. So documenting the lives of the individuals who worked at the estate, and we're very fortunate that the family has so much documentation. We also, as far as we are putting together a grant on, or we have put together a grant to put an exhibit together on the history of slavery in Appalachia. That is one of the things that most people coming through have no concept that even existed here. So that's a powerful thing that we're working on. As far as those, we're kind of using those as our foundational materials, and then want to move from there, from slavery, emancipation, Reconstruction, into bringing it into the 20th century story. So it's just going to be a process of building that up. Yeah, and I'll also say that it's also, an opportunity, and that's what all history sites are doing right now, is acknowledging the people who've not been mentioned before. So be it the African American community or women, that these people played roles.
Good deal. I'm glad to hear that.
Forrest, do you have anything?
No questions, just thank you for coming out here tonight, and thank you for what you do. It's really cool to see it all together like this, for sure.
Well, thank you.
And Scott, we are thankful that you helped tell our story. That's so important, so thank you. Council members, at this time we need to consider the memorandum of understanding. Do you all have any questions regarding the memorandum itself? Do we have a motion that we adopt the memorandum of understanding for 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much. We're appreciative of everybody's efforts. It takes a team, and we're appreciative of the whole team coming together to make that happen. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Now I have a little story time. Going back to our beginning, Radford was a rail community. The railroad was a significant portion of Radford's history. In fact, at one time we were known as Central because we were located halfway between Lynchburg and Bristol on the Virginia-Tennessee Railroad. There is a Civil War connection because the Union actually burned the railroad bridge that's located right behind Glencoe to disrupt supplies coming out of Southwest Virginia along that rail line. Southwest Virginia is getting back into passenger rail after many decades of not having had a passenger rail connection. Amtrak will be coming back to Christiansburg, hopefully by 2025. That is the plan. But as part of that, the city of Radford, through the New River Valley Regional Commission and our partners regionally, needs to develop an authority to create the passenger rail system and the station. So Kevin Bird, our executive director of the New River Valley Regional Commission, is here. Kevin, if you'll walk us through this a little bit, and then we will go forward with the authority.
Yes. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you so much for having me here this evening to talk about the New River Valley Passenger Rail Station Authority. And as the mayor mentioned, this has been going on for a number of years, and I want to give you all just a bit of brief background to make sure we're all up to speed before we talk about the authority itself. I might need you to advance for me. Thank you. So I'll chat a little bit about the passenger rail station, or the progress to date on passenger rail in the region, where we are currently, and that's the authority formation, and then next steps. We'll have some time for questions as well. So in 2013, the Blacksburg Partnership pulled together, it has been a very impressive public-private citizen collaborative and coalition to bring service back to this area. And that's been a room full of people working really hard. One of the first things they did was pull some people together from Roanoke and Lynchburg and ask them how were they successful in reintroducing service to their communities. We wanted to do the same here. Both of those communities said, well, you need good ridership numbers, things that the state can rely on for modeling purposes and figure out whether or not there's a return on investment for a station. And so the New River Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO, asked our organization at the Regional Commission to conduct the ridership study. And we did that in 2016, and we felt really comfortable about saying that there would be 40,000 people riding per year if we had a station in the New River Valley. That was based on two ways of figuring that number out. One was a survey that was really well participated in across the region. And we took the numbers from the survey of people saying how many times would they go northbound on this train. And then also looked at regular vehicle traffic out of the New River Valley. We have over 1 million trips annually that generate from the New River Valley that go northbound on I-81. And if we have a simple 2% mode shift, getting someone out of a car into the train, it's pretty easy to attain 40,000 riders per year. So we felt like it's very conservative. The next task on our plate at that time was to figure out a logical place for a station. And the way the Department of Rail and Public Transit it has this network now, it's no longer every community has their own station. So the New River Valley had to talk and look about what station locations made the most sense. And so initially we looked at 29 sites the local governments had given to us to say, please help evaluate these 29 sites. Then we applied some criteria from the Department of Rail and Public Transit, primarily parking, because the way these things operate now is that you need to be able to accommodate enough vehicles to host people for multiple days. These are extended trips that people are making. And that narrowed it down to 3 sites with available land. And then the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the policy board, evaluated those 3, and they chose a site next to the Aquatic Center in Christiansburg back in 2016. So next one was, the next piece of all this was, okay, say there's a station here. How are you going to own and operate the station? Because in the Nero Valley, the ridership is going to come from multiple places. Most places that have a station, it's owned by City of Roanoke or City of Lynchburg, but here we know that ridership is going to come from all over the region. And our task in this study was to evaluate the different models of ownership, whether that's a host locality, whether that's host locality and public-private partners, a transportation authority, an LLC, a corporation, or an authority. Well, throughout the process and really at the end, everybody says an authority makes so much sense in this case because we'd have ridership coming from around the region. And we have other examples in the Nero Valley of local governments working together with higher ed on infrastructure, whether it's water, sewer, airports that are jointly owned. And we realize that higher ed is going to be a major factor to make this successful. So that's why there was strong consensus there, was creating an authority. So what would their role be? Everything on the left-hand slide here shows what the state will pay for in operations, capital construction and equipment of rail, and the platform that you stand on before you step onto that train. Anything that's past that platform, away from the train, is a local expense. And the state has made it clear that they do expect a station to be constructed as a part of any new service in a community. That's not the case right now in Roanoke, but there are plans in place for that to be constructed. So local expenses, there would be the station and the items that it takes to operate that, whether that's maintenance, utilities, janitorial, list goes on there. And then connecting into that is really important. This was also a major factor when we were evaluating sites, is how do you get Radford Transit, Blacksburg Transit, Pulaski Area Transit into this facility? You need to be able to accommodate those types of services. And how that cost is covered is a local expense. So trying to figure out ballpark when we were doing this station location study, and then how much is this going to cost to operate on an annual basis? This is, looking at that site adjacent to the Aquatic Center, what would it cost to grade that and then operate it? Round numbers here was, it looked like about a $360,000 annual operating project with 30-year debt service on $4.25 million. And that 4.25 was the grading and the building construction. On that site, if you're familiar with it, there's a grade there, and there was a 3-story station that was planned to be there to be able to accommodate parking to get down to the track. And you're building out the site with furnishings, fixtures, equipment, $250,000, and then building and ground maintenance at $70,000. So if we figure we had this $360,000 annual operating cost, how do you distribute that equitably in an authority model? We looked at a few different models on this as well. Is it purely population? Is it ridership, proximity to the station? Well, the answer that the group came up with was a blending of all 3 of those is how you get to equity. And here shows you how that $360,000 could be devised among the potential members of the authority. You have Montgomery County, Town of Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, Town of Christiansburg as the larger 4 of interest because of the population, proximity, and potential ridership. They would make up 78% of an annual operating cost, so 19.5% each, around $69,000. Looking over to the right on that, you see the city of Radford University splitting about 14.5%, so 7.25, around $25,000. Then you can see the other potential authority members and what those costs may be at that $360,000 annual operating cost. So we did everybody had comfort of saying, okay, that seems like a reasonable amount that we could afford in budgets. And then we know that the service would be well utilized. What's the next step? How do we do this? Well, we needed to go to the General Assembly and get enabling legislation to create this organizational structure so local governments and higher ed could partner. And that's what led to the Passenger Rail Station Authority, which was signed into law effective July 1st. And that's where we are now, is working on creating this organizational structure. And again, it allows local governments and higher ed to collaborate. And how you do this is the ordinance that you all would need to pass and executing an agreement. The composition of that authority, it was the spreadsheet. You saw the local governments and the higher ed. That's 10 members, 8 of those being local government, and then Radford University, Virginia Tech, and each member would have 2 appointees to serve on that board. And then our organization is identified right now as the administrative entity to help facilitate meetings and continue to move forward. So what would the commitment be? That's what everyone wants to know. That first bullet is what we know right now, is that there's a general administrative cost to help get the authority meeting and moving forward. But then the second part of all this that we don't know is what would the capital cost be in operations? As I mentioned, we had the station location that next to the Aquatic Center in Christiansburg. Well, the governor was here, made an announcement back in May, I believe it was, in the enthusiasm of right-of-way acquisition, but that was on a different track from where we had identified the station. So right now, the state is evaluating potential station locations, and we don't have any news on where that is right now, other than knowing that there is an engineering firm that they're engaging on that. We do know that we have Ray Smoot, who's the Commonwealth Transportation Board member, who's been a strong advocate for this and was also just recently reappointed as of last Friday to serve on the Commonwealth Transportation Board, who I think is working hard to defer or decrease any potential local cost in this. So it's a big unknown with what the station location will be and what potential finance it would be. But we do know is that authorities have matured over time in Virginia, and as a part of that maturation process, they've been able to come up with participation agreements that allows the members to isolate liability, financial liability on that. But in this case, we would think that anybody who wants to join the authority it's an exclusive purpose authority, whereas you have other authorities that may have like an industrial facilities authority, multiple interests. You can isolate liability and participation agreement there. Here, hopefully everybody is on for the same purpose. So next is the potential members passing an ordinance to create the authority. We know that this is sending a really strong message to the state, saying we are committed to this in the Newer Valley. We've made progress ever since 2013, every other year, ticking off major accomplishments. We know that they are working on a station location. And then we are committed in our organization, I know the local governments are as well, is what kind of state and federal resources could be brought to bear, again, to decrease that local cost. We know Congress has been talking about an infrastructure package. What does that mean? Is this an opportunity for that? I would think it would tee up very nicely. When you see local governments collaborating on major infrastructure piece, that would be attractive. But we'll keep our eyes open for those opportunities. I think that's it. So I'd be happy to take any questions or
Well, thank you, Kevin, and I'm going to give a little more along with that, sitting on the Regional Commission and having followed this for a number of years. A couple of thoughts. Radford was one of the sites originally with the 3 finalists that were considered, but this station will be in Christiansburg somewhere, we believe,
right.
Because of the way the lines have been done. The rail line will actually be a different rail line than the main Norfolk Southern line, so I just wanted to clear up that piece. At tonight's meeting, we're establishing the authority through local ordinance. We are not agreeing to a cost structure at this point because we don't know what that's going to be. There will be a participation agreement later where we will talk about that. And as Kevin said, the only immediate costs we'll have to consider as we move forward with this is sort of the startup administrative costs, not the capital costs and not some of the bigger picture costs that we don't know yet. So you're not agreeing to commit the city of Radford, like with that chart that was given, to X $1,000s a year. You know, that might be a ballpark of where we end up, but truth be told, we have no idea right now.
Correct.
This could be $1 million station, this could be a $4 million station. We don't know. We think it is going to probably be less than what was planned before because it won't be a 3-story station as was planned at the Aquatic Center site. So that removes some of the challenges that were associated there. And then whatever the actual operating cost looks like, we'll go with from there. Council members, do you all have any questions before we consider this authority? Naomi.
I don't believe I have any questions. Thank you, Kevin, for coming in. This is just going to be an extraordinary addition to the New River Valley. I'm so excited that we're here and that we're talking about this and able to move forward. The question that I had, I think you just answered in that we don't know where the location is. Our costs right now, we really don't have any idea, and that could change at any point.
Right.
I guess the one question I do have is, do you have a sense of, in terms of timing of these next steps as we move forward? what we're looking at, or
Well,
we kind of
when the
just?
governor was here, they made a long-term commitment of the Western Virginia Rail Initiative. So if anybody wants to look up more about what the governor's announcement was, I would encourage them to look that up. It's the Western Virginia Rail Initiative, and it makes a commitment, I believe, 2024, of service in New River Valley.
That's wonderful.
And that's pretty aggressive, because I understand there's some track improvements that would need to happen as well, not just a station construction. But, yeah, the Secretary of Transportation is a huge advocate for service. She was in the House when they got it in Lynchburg. So we feel like the stars have aligned, made good progress, but no definitive timeline.
Sure. Well, that's a wonderfully ambitious and nice to hear goal. So thank you.
Forrest, do you have any questions?
No questions either. Yeah, appreciate you coming out and explaining it. It's definitely exciting.
Jesse?
I did have a question. So I understand we don't know what the cost is going to be, what that final number is. So the percentage that we're paying as a city, obviously that's a little bit of a guess going into it. Will that percentage be evaluated based on actual ridership going forward to adjust that one way or the other?
It very well could be. So the authority, when they get together for their first meeting, they'll probably have an organizational meeting, who's in leadership roles, and then there, I would assume, annual budgeting process that would happen. And in that is probably where they're talking about what their percent ownership or shares may be and how you distribute those costs. So it could theoretically change. But right now, this is the same presentation everybody's receiving.
Okay.
And it was what was agreed to by the localities at the time, with it being such a visionary ballpark and not really having that much concrete to go on. It likely will shift a little bit one way or another. One of the pieces that Kevin mentioned is Ray Smoot is working to advocate for the state providing even greater support to where maybe that isn't a 30-year commitment for a station for the localities. There's something a little bit different. We don't know that yet. But yeah, you're right. That could change, but that's where the authority would come into effect. And for us to approve Radford's share, we will have a participation agreement that we'll have to consider. So there are several stops along the way before that train gets where it's going. Onassis, what do you have?
Nothing. I just want to thank you for nothing, but just want to thank you for coming out tonight and presenting. This is exciting. I think having another viable transportation route, a means of transportation conveyance to get here to the NRV, which means economic opportunities for those who have businesses within this area. So. Who doesn't want this? So I commend you for your efforts. This is really good to see you. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Kevin, for all your work on this. We are very fortunate. Kevin did mention that the Regional Commission is essentially serving as the administrative arm of this for the time being, and we're so thankful that this is just one of the many things that you all do to take care of us and go from there. In our Regional Commission meetings, not only have we been discussing this, but we've advocated for improvements to I-81. We have some of our members that sit on the I-81 improvement group that look at that, and so really looking at that transportation in and out of the New River Valley is happening significantly. So there's a lot going on. If there are no further questions, we will entertain a motion to approve Ordinance 1755, which would establish the New River Valley Rail Station Authority.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, I'm sorry. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Do we have a motion to do so? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second to dispense with a second reading of Ordinance 1755 to establish the New River Valley Rail Station Authority. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and thank you again, Kevin. This is exciting, and it's a big step, and it has taken a long time to get here. But we are going to keep moving forward with all of this. And I will keep you informed as information comes up at Regional Commission and as we continue to move forward as a region on this. We have several appropriation ordinances we need to consider. Appropriation Ordinance 1749.20, it is a grant from the Department of Motor Vehicles for in the amount of $8,000. Okay, never mind. It's a grant in the amount of $8,000. The funds will be used for enforcement with our police department associated with alcohol safety. This supports overtime and additional officers for peak violation times. We will add an additional $4,000 to that with existing budget funds as part of our match. So the total of the amount of appropriation ordinance 1749.20 is $12,000. Council members, do you all have any questions? Do we have a motion to approve appropriation ordinance 1749.20?
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Is there a motion to do so? We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second to dispense with a second reading of appropriation ordinance 1749.20. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Appropriation ordinance 1749.21 is another Department of Motor Vehicles grant for traffic patrol. It is in the amount of $6,750 from the DMV. The grant is matched with a local support of $3375 from existing budget funds, which brings us to the total of $10,125. This is primarily for speeding and the Click It or Ticket program, which is about seatbelt wearing. Do we have a motion to adopt appropriation ordinance 1749.21 in the amount of $10,125?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to dispense with a second reading of appropriation ordinance 1749.21 in the amount of $10,125. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have an additional grant. This is an EMS grant. So, and Chief, I'm actually going to ask you to come up and talk about this one. This is a little bit larger one. We've received a grant from the Office of Emergency Medical Services in the amount of $33,820. They'll be used to support enhanced 911 communication. Can you talk about that?
I can. I'm actually going to defer to Captain Caldwell just for the simple fact that I have worn him out with grants. So I think he deserves, this has been his project and he knows a lot about that. So I'm going to give him his thunder tonight and let him talk about it.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, City Council. So what an EMD grant is Emergency Medical Dispatch. What that does is allow our dispatchers to provide life-saving instructions to people, specifically CPR, choking instructions, and other life-saving measures such as bleeding control. The legislators are great at mandating certain things, but then not providing funding for it. So we have to be EMD operational by 2024. They gave us an earlier deadline of 2022 to be what's called telecommunicator CPR trained, which basically means our dispatchers could only do CPR and choking, but not the full gamut of what EMD can do. So we found the opportunity, the last funding opportunity was actually through the Rescue Squad Assistance Fund, which provided 80% of the funding for this project. We were also able, because Pulaski County and us do so much 911 together, our systems are actually together, we actually are piggybacking off them, which really reduced the cost. So if we didn't go ahead and go for the full EMD project, New River Valley 911 is EMD, Pulaski County is getting ready to be EMD, we would be stuck in the middle without it. So it provides the life-saving instructions to people, but it also benefits our employees because it helps the mental health of our communications officer. Because right now, someone is not breathing, all my dispatcher could say is, I've got help on the way, I've got help on the way. Once we get EMD, now they can be, hey, I'm helping. And when you give that person a CPR pen where they've actually given instructions to save somebody, or they've helped deliver a baby and they get a stork pen, it really helps their mental health as far as being a dispatcher. But this is a project that's going to put us alongside of bigger agencies and be able to do this program. So we're going to well meet our deadline, but it's a very critical program that helps our citizens and visitors to be super vigilant with our operations.
Thank you, Captain. What's the timeline for the training?
So the timeline of the training is actually going to be super expedited because Pulaski County already has all the trainers already certified. So The only expense we have to do is pay for the $50 book per dispatcher and then get them over to Pulaski County and get them trained. So we're talking in the next 2 months having our people trained and then get the software installed and then start the training. Our goal by January 1st is to be EMD operational.
Great.
So it's a super quick program, but it's a very easily achieved goal.
All right. Any other questions, council members?
Are you finding with the increased training in these other localities that are doing that, are these positions seeing an increase in their pay with that? That's an increased responsibility, obviously.
Right, so that's things that we have to look at, and I talked about them not providing funding, but in order to do EMD, we have to tie up dispatchers longer, so they're doing more jobs. So obviously, we need to look at additional personnel in the future. We certainly need to look at increasing their pay, because anytime you add a duty to something, especially people that were dispatchers 10 years ago and never thought they'd be here, we really need to look at increasing pay. We need to look at increasing personnel in order to make this program really beneficial.
Okay.
There's some, with the EMD program as well, there's some additional training requirements that each dispatcher's gonna have to maintain. I think every 2 years.
Right.
They'll have to get so many continuing education.
Will you come over to the microphone? You're saying important
Yeah,
stuff. We want everybody to hear that.
There's also some training requirements with that EMD certification that they'll have to maintain. I think it's 24 hours of continuing education every 2 years, so there'll be some things that'll have to be required with that as well, so.
Okay.
We like to look in the crystal ball a little bit and see what's coming at us. So
Well-
it just makes sense. This is obviously a big increase in responsibility for them, so.
You're forecasting the weather pretty well, but we started this ball rolling down the hill last year. I believe we asked for 2 additional dispatchers. We were at 8. We increased it to 10 because I knew that this was something coming down the road. They actually, because of COVID, we looked at it tonight. They bumped it back to 2024. The initial mandate was 2023 for EMD. Our thought process on it was, why just do CPR and then have to do EMD? Let's take the whole bite of the apple here and do it all at once, especially if we have grant funding. So Captain Caldwell found that money, and we're going to take advantage of it.
Well, not only is it good for the mental health of the dispatchers, but it's good for our community.
Absolutely. And it's
Save lives.
consistency of service. One of the things they talk about in state meetings related to this is you should be able to drive across the Commonwealth of Virginia and be able to get emergency medical dispatch in Prince William, Richmond, Radford, Pulaski, wherever you go, and that's the ultimate goal.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so we have a grant in the amount of $33,820, a local match that's 20%, $8,455 for a total of $42,275,000. So $42,275. Do we have a motion to approve appropriation ordinance 1749.22?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion to dispense with a second reading. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you for getting those grants. We now need to look at our CDBG monies, Community Development Block Grant funds from the Virginia Department of Housing and Urban Development. Help us to do a number of things to support our community. We have a 2021 action plan that's been developed. We approved that plan previously. The funds are in the amount of $185,184. There are a number of sub-recipients, including New River Community Action, Women's Resource Center, Beans and Rice, Bobcat Backpacks, and Daily Bread, as well as improvements to beautification, facade enhancements, planning and improvements for East Main Street and 3rd Avenue, the wonderfully historic parks at Dobbins and Oakley Playground. So there's a lot of great things that are going to come from this money. Council members, do you all have any questions regarding the CDBG plan for this next year? Melissa, do you have anything you want to add? I think we're good. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve appropriation ordinance 1749.23 in the amount of $185,184?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
A motion to dispense with a second reading of Appropriation Ordinance 1749.23 in the amount of $185,184. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Council members, I am going to ask to add an additional element on here, and this is regarding an upcoming event that we need to consider and need to approve the use of the Norwood Square parking lot. Tourism Commission has been working to create an international food festival. This is something we'd hoped to do in 2020. Unfortunately, COVID kind of got the best of us, but it is something that's going to happen in 2021 on October 30th, Saturday, October 30th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., and they would like to use Norwood Square parking lot. This will not only bring in additional food trucks and restaurants from other localities, but it will highlight our local businesses, our local restaurants. We're going to, I think, try to establish tables for people who are not located right in that district and a variety of different things. Council members, any questions regarding this event? Do we have a motion to approve the use of Norwood Square for the International Food Festival on October 30th, 2021?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I'm excited. That's going to be incredible. That is going to be a wonderful weekend with our trick-or-treat trail downtown on October the 29th, Friday afternoon, and then this event on Saturday, and of course Sunday is Halloween, so it's going to be a busy weekend in Radford. David, what do you have?
Just a couple of quick things, Mayor. Thank you all for approving the event. That's going to be exciting. There's a lot of things going on coming up, so it's nice to see us getting past COVID and people starting to get out again. Many of these things are outdoors, which is great. Just a little pre-planning looking forward. We're bringing back the Christmas parade this year. We're getting a date established for that. It most likely will be the second Friday after Thanksgiving is over, but we'll get that lined up. People are starting to ask about it already, and still may do the tree lighting, but maybe do a virtual event at the library, but we're working through that part of it. So those kinds of things are coming up as we go along, plus everything that we've got coming up with the Thanksgiving holidays and that kind of thing. So look local with Arts and Humanities Month. Lots of things to do in our community. You don't have to go far to have some great events, and also the events as well in the New River Valley. Leaf collection is upon us. It will start October 25th. We ask that folks be patient. We're still trying to get folks on board, manpower to do all of this. We're going to have some assistance, we think, from trustees as well, but we'll start that program aggressively on the 25th of October. More information will be coming out as we go forward. The water line that we've been working on now for a while, and COVID has had some impact on that and distractions with other things. The water line on Cowan, Highland Street, that area up in West End is nearing completion. We should be done with that very soon. It's replacing an old galvanized 3/4 and 1 inch line with new 4-inch and 6-inch stuff. So much improved water system up there, much improved flow to the residents of that area. So that's nearing completion. And of course, we've completed the sidewalk project from Forest Avenue back to Ingle Street. Excellent, getting a lot of use now. Dollar Store's opening, and we're getting ready to add some additional lighting. So every light pole from Denby Street all the way out to Forest will have a new Cobra head on it probably within the next couple of weeks. So it should brighten up the East Main Street corridor right there, and the folks that are walking and taking advantage of that to get to some of the new businesses that are in that area, and then typically just getting around should be a big improvement for us. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it at this point. Thank you.
A couple additional things on that. We are working to see if we can afford, hopefully soon, to do additional sidewalk improvement in that area, because we know there are some additional spaces that need it. The lighting and then the beautification, there are going to be trees planted through all that district. So the West End investment is significant. Naomi.
The only thing that I have to say is that it is the best day of the year. 1 year ago, I was able to give birth to my daughter, Rory. So happy birthday, Rory. That's what she was doing here for everybody who is curious. She's 1 year old today, and it was a literal dream come true to be able to bring her here tonight. So thank you all for letting her join me.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, Rory. Jesse, what do you have?
Yes, so some very good news for council. I have a signed memorandum of understanding with the American Legion. So we have that part accomplished. Tomorrow I will be reaching out to the roofing company as well as the asbestos removal. So I have that for you. They did want me to tell you, because you know I've been compiling a list of things that they would like to do once the building is up and running. And they said in the past, they were able to do flag etiquette presentations, and they showed me a couple slides that they did with local brownie troops. So that's another example that they wanted me to share of something that they would like to do. They've also given me a really nice presentation. It's a brief presentation. I have handed it over to you guys. So at some point, they would love to just go through a few slides. They're very excited, and they just want to share just a little bit of the history with us as a group. So if you guys don't mind maybe getting that on the agenda, they would love that. And if anyone wants to see the hard copy, they also made me a hard copy, so you are welcome to that. I want to also mention that this evening, my moment of silence was dedicated to Ivan Wallace Howell. And my friends at Glencoe and with the Heritage Foundation, I have to say, I had mentioned to council that we were going to have some of the pieces that were sitting in the American Legion looked at being donated to this museum for future preservation. And Scott mentioned that at some point he would like to maybe even do an event and kind of make a display and invite the community to come and see some of those items. So the American Legion members, they liked what they saw. They were very appreciative. It's very difficult for them to hand these items over because, of course, they're very emotionally attached to them, and they've been holding some of them in that building. Well, some pieces were from 1918, so the building's from 1928. So they've held on to a lot of this a long time. But we did go, and Scott methodically went through the process of how they were going to handle each type of piece, whether it was a picture or a certificate. And so I think that they now feel that the best stewards would truly be the Heritage Foundation and putting them in Glencoe. So that is also moving forward. I did have a handout of the finances I had brought in. It might have been the day of your crash, the day of or day after your walking incident, just from one of my committees where the expenses are. I was getting copies for everybody. So I don't see them here, but I'll make sure you have them.
Who'd you leave those with? Did you leave them with Juanita?
It was at the front desk.
Was it Ally?
Could be. Younger. Yeah. I just want to make sure you guys
Check
kind
on
of
that
see where the
tomorrow.
expenditures are with that. So
This is the expenditures from social services, right? Yeah.
Yes. So when I see any ticking up or down, I like to let you guys know again, just to see what's coming down the pipeline in regards to the expenditures and funding. So you'll be getting hold of that. Also, this Thursday at 11, I will be meeting the superintendent of schools at the school board meeting, so I can get a tour of the new school. So if anyone, of course, I can only invite one other person, but if anyone else is available from council and they want to meet me there at 11 and want to do a tour, McCarg, then just let me know.
And I think we're going to try to do that for everybody over the next few weeks, because we are going to meet with the school board again here in a few weeks to talk about that. So everybody will get a chance to do that.
Proactive.
You're going to go for it. There you go.
We've been working and talking about it.
Yep.
Of course, with it being a little bit damp, the superintendent very nicely was discouraging me because he said that I would lose my
Your
rain
shoes,
boots
huh? Yeah.
in the mud. So he assured me that he thought it was good enough as drying up. So anyway, I just wanted to extend that since I did go ahead and schedule it. And
Thank
that's
you.
all I have.
Thank you. Onassis, what do you have?
Nothing for tonight.
Okay. Forrest, what do you have?
Just quickly to draw attention to Craft and Draft this coming Saturday. I've got a wedding that day, but I'm still gonna try to swing by at least briefly. I'm looking forward to checking that out. So.
Thank you. It's been a busy time in Radford. We had the Radford Highlanders Festival this last weekend. That's a partnership between the city and Radford University that was held on Radford University's campus. It was a return after, of course, having had to be canceled for 2020, and so many folks were happy to come back. We are looking to expand that event and to be able to do more with it. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of the great turnout. The vendors all did really well. I went and spoke with each of them, and many of our local businesses did well as well that day. So that was a real positive. Forrest, to your point, yes, Craft and Draft is this Saturday from 11 a.m. until we believe 5 or 6 p.m. I was doing a video with Lucinda Pirro. We weren't sure on our stop time, but we're going to say 6, and then we'll figure it out from there. But one of the pieces that I'm wearing tonight, I actually have a couple of buttons that are made from a local artisan, a local artist, Ben Crenshaw. His wife Janet is our artist at the library who does the amazing windows down there. And one of the buttons is the owl for wisdom, and the other button is a seeker, which is a little trinket he created, and the idea is that you're continuously seeking a new path. And I thought those were both appropriate for us to wear to our council meetings. But so much neat stuff, so much talent here, and the exciting part is he shares this information and sells it at the gift shop. That was something we didn't talk about during the MOU, and I wanted to bring that up. Glencoe's gift shop has turned into a wonderful outlet for your holiday and seasonal shopping. And so while this event will bring more folks to town and more opportunities to take care of your shopping list for the next few months, the gift shop at Glencoe provides us with that opportunity all the time. And I know Ben is featured there. Yeah, go ahead.
When I was there on Thursday, not only do they have things that are from artists locally that are brand new, but they also have an antique section of which they've collected some antiques of which they're selling. And because my husband is always asking me, does this tie go with this shirt or this suit color? I got a tie rack, but at the top it says, if this color is your suit, this is, you wear this shirt and this tie. So like you just turn the knob and it tells you, you know, if you're trying to figure out your shirt, your tie, or your suit. So just so you all know, these are very practical, nice gifts, and he did get that. But it was from 1937, so I thought that was pretty cool. So go and check it out because there's just a wide variety of interesting gifts to give to your significant ones. So
No, absolutely, and you know, lots of neat ways to showcase people in our area, which is important. One last thing, we are going to be discussing our American Rescue Plan funds over the next month or so. Part of that will be a retreat that we're going to have on November the 3rd for council, and wanted to make sure folks knew about that. We're gathering ideas. If you have thoughts of things that we can use this federal money for, we are still working through our categories of how we're allowed to expend it and what we can do. But this really is an opportunity for us to be able to put significant investments in the Radford community in areas that will help us grow our economy moving forward and to grow our community moving forward. So that's very, very exciting. Forrest, do you have an end time for me? I figured you were looking that up.
It looked like it was 6.
That's what we thought. Yeah. So Lucinda and I got it right when we did our video. But the Glencoe grounds are such a wonderful gathering space. This is going to be a great event this weekend. Our International Food Festival at the end of the month, along with the Trick or Treat Trail in October as well. There's so many good things happening, a lot of positives there. Today is Indigenous Peoples Day. We wanted to recognize that. I also know that some folks still celebrate Columbus Day as well, which has been an Italian-American celebration. This past weekend, we had our Highlanders Festival that celebrates the Scots-Irish tradition of our region. So many ways to celebrate our identities. One of the coolest things for us here in the city, though, is so many of them tie together that it's our Radford identity and how we celebrate as a community and recognize ourselves. So with that, we will entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say good night.
Good night.